This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
Welcome, Alphas. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show for you today. Our guest today has been called a triple threat, Stacy. Dr. Uma Naidoo is a nutritional psychiatrist, 1, a professional chef, threat 2, and a nutritional biologist. She is author of the international bestseller, This Is Your Brain on Food. Her newest book is called Calm Your Mind with Food, a revolutionary guide to controlling your anxiety. This is something I think a lot of folks could benefit from during this time of year at Thanksgiving. What do you think?
Well, aside from turkey being a natural sleep agent, you're absolutely right. Thanksgiving is definitely anxiety inducing. So speaking of Thanksgiving, it's just you and me, Adam, this week. Joe's busy standing in as a rocket for the annual Thanksgiving Day Macy's Day Parade. So all you alphas, if you're in there tuning into the Macy's Day Parade, be sure to keep an eye out for that hulking dude, the redheaded one. He'll be in the spangly, sparkly outfit with the service dog, the one-legged guy bouncing around on the plaza in New York City. I'm just kidding. He's still in DC doing good things for America's Vet Dogs, raising awareness for service dogs for veterans. So always doing good things. But Adam, in honor of Thanksgiving, I wanted to see if you knew a little bit about Thanksgiving history in the military. Did you know October 1863, Abraham Lincoln was the first president to proclaim National Thanksgiving with Lincoln's Thanksgiving Proclamation?
No.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, with Civil War in full swing, the Army's commissary didn't have enough food necessary, both in type and quantity, to provide a full Thanksgiving meal for the troops, which was a little bit awkward, considering he declared Thanksgiving, but couldn't feed them. Anyway, so the stipulation was that American people had to, quote, set apart and observe the last Thursday of November as part of Thanksgiving. That meant that the nation would permanently be #blessed with the Friday following Thanksgiving. That means Black Friday. Now leave it to us to pair these extra days for excessive capitalism. Are you a big shopper?
No, I'm not a big shopper, and I don't support Black Friday. No, I'm just kidding. My sister-in-law will love Black Friday, and then the date, the time that you were allotted to go, kept moving back more and more to where it's you have to finish Thanksgiving dinner, to go out. And then it was oh, that's not enough. We need to add a Cyber Monday.
Yeah.
So let's add Cyber Monday to the equation. But in all honesty,
wait, no, you're skipping, isn't it? Local Saturday.
Oh yeah, local weekend maybe.
Wait, yeah.
Shop
the
local
most important
over the weekend. Cyber Monday, and then
small business Saturday.
Small business Saturday, and then Sunday.
I think Sunday was just a day
Sunday's
off.
just NFL, just back to NFL.
Yeah. And then Cyber Monday. But then my favorite,
But
and
then
this
we
is
got
where I
our
give
wits
all my
about us.
gifts,
Yes.
is Giving Tuesday.
Yes.
So
that came about, maybe 10 years ago, right? That hasn't been around for a long time.
It was pre-COVID. I know that.
Yeah, when I launched our first nonprofit in 2015, we were doing Giving Tuesday back then. So I know it's been at least about 10-ish years. But look, in all seriousness, between those shopping days, you can get good deals. Right? Oh, 2012. There you go. Okay. 2012 for Giving Tuesday. You can get great deals. But I love that week. I love Thanksgiving. It's not anxiety, for me for the most part, probably because I'm not cooking, but I do support those who cook any way I can by doing whatever they ask me to do. But I love the state of gratitude. I love the state of thanks, good deals if you want to partake. But then in 2012, getting your wits about it and saying, look, we've done all these things for ourselves, and going forward, how can we, give back?
Yeah.
And that hits near and dear to my heart.
Same. Hey, all you alphas, if you want to do something for Thanksgiving, try the American Legion Giving Tuesday. Give the gift of American Legion for Giving Tuesday this holiday season.
All right, alphas, please stick around, and we'll be back with Dr. Naidoo, Triple Threat, right after the break.
Attention retired uniformed service members. Open season for enrollment ends December 9th. Choose Blue Cross Blue Shield FEP Dental and you'll get comprehensive dental coverage that works with your needs and budget. Pay nothing for covered dental exams, cleanings, and x-rays when you see an in-network dentist. And their network has dentists in all 50 states. There are less than 2 weeks left to enroll and see what the benefits of Blue can do for you and your family. Visit bcbsfepdental.com to learn more and enroll before December 9th.
As a veteran, you've done more than your fair share of providing support. Now it's our turn. Introducing the WellCare and the American Legion Partnership and the WellCare Medicare Advantage plans that give you more support, more access, and more benefits in addition to your VA benefits. Visit wellcareforveterans.com today or call 844-917-1165. Ohana Health Plan, a plan offered by WellCare Health Insurance of Arizona, Inc. New Mexico Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan, DSNP members. As a WellCare by Allwell DSNP member, you have coverage from both Medicare and Medicaid. Medicaid services are funded in part by the state of New Mexico. New Mexico Medicaid benefits may be limited to payment of Medicare premiums for some members.
Well, hey, alphas, right from Rockefeller Plaza comes Joe limping off the plaza because he didn't make the cut. The Rockettes literally kicked him off. But thankfully,
it's not fair. I did not have my dancing leg on.
That's what I was going to say. Is it because the leg?
I had the wrong leg.
We can file a lawsuit.
Yes, I love lawsuits.
But he's here just in time for us with Dr. Naidoo. So this is exciting.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Today we are joined by Dr. Naidoo. And Dr. Naidoo, welcome to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, Dr. It's so great to have you with us today. And I thought I would just jump right into the deep end with you because I recently had the opportunity to go down to Cancun. I'm hoping to set up a veterans program down there at a retreat called
Awesome.
Beyond. Yeah, and I
Mhm.
got to go to this wellness clinic that took some of my hair and did some epigenetic testing, and it showed me some really cool stuff like my needs across different areas and things I was deficient in, like minerals, vitamins, antioxidants, and even specific foods to avoid for like the next 90 days. So
Wow.
it was really eye-opening for me, especially seeing the different how the different nutrients impact systems like my metabolism, my immune
Mhm.
system, and cardiovascular health. So it was really cool because it's really individualized and personalized just for me. So I guess my question to kind of kick us off is, from your perspective, how important is understanding to that level of personalization and being able to chart a path to optimum mental health and resilience?
So firstly, that's a great question. And secondly, I think it is exactly the direction that we're moving in for nutritional lifestyle and metabolic psychiatry. When I first founded my clinic years ago, things were less personalized because that's where the science was at the time. But we're now growing in this direction through microbiome and other testing. And now the plans that I design are highly personalized and also based on precision medicine for certain individuals. That being said, we are still a new and growing field. So as the science grows, we grow alongside with it. But I think it's extremely important. And I would be really curious to see and hear the outcomes from that if they're different from, say, any other plan that you've tried or any other period of your life where you've tried to make dietary adjustments or something like that.
Well, I think you brought up a really good point with being help, your clients in your clinic to develop these personalized plans, because it's a rich report of information, and it tells me what foods to avoid and even things that I should eat. But I'm can put a plan together and I can, follow a strategy, but even that like
Right.
takes a fair amount of if somebody is less inclined to feel comfortable doing something like that on their own, it's a big task because now you may have to be getting rid of some foods, have a customized shopping plan, and now how are you going to prepare meals for this to achieve that
Yeah.
optimal performance?
It's a very big undertaking, and I never assume that because I can provide the science and a decent treatment plan for someone that it's easy to execute. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I think that action step, especially where we're trying to move away from, say, some habits that we have or habits that we're trying to break through, let's say, it is hard. It's a challenge to step back from things that we're doing. And when I was new to this, I would give people a little bit of a laundry list, I have to admit, and I learned the hard way through learning from them and with them, but also my own charting my own sort of course in this, that it was too much. So now I say to people, follow the simple mnemonic SAW and start with just one of these three things. S is for swap. So say a famous one I'm hearing all the time, I shouldn't say famous, sort of infamous one I'm hearing all the time is I began eating ice cream every night to get through the pandemic, and I'm still doing it years later. Maybe it's that or something else. Swap one habit that you're concerned about. It doesn't mean you have to give it up, but just maybe cut back, but swap it out with a healthier choice. Berries and extra dark chocolate, or clementine at dinner, or something from something with natural sweetness. The A is for add. Add in, it's so easy to add in extra vegetables to any of your meals, to all parts of your day. Salads, side dishes, snacks, crudité, whatever it is. It's so easy. And it's, if these are healthily prepared, they're not adding calories to your day that are extreme. So add in something. For someone else, it might be, I want to up my protein game. And I've realized that I'm not eating enough protein. Or maybe I'm vegetarian and I want to improve my protein source. For someone else, it might be not eating enough healthy fats. But adding in vegetables is just simple. Any one of us can do it. And the W is generically for walk, so it's movement, because there's such a growing body of evidence that highlights how movement improves mood and lowers anxiety. Just being active, exercising regularly. So instead of having people be overwhelmed with the long list, I asked them to start there as I designed that plan with them, and see which of those one of those three things that they can jump on board with, and start there. So it is a way to move themselves forward with momentum rather than struggle with those habit changes, which are hard to do.
So if I were to subtract one of my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and then added in a almond butter and jelly sandwich and walked while I ate it.
See, you're getting the knack of it. So that was a good joke. But actually, what you're saying has a lot of merit to it. I'm asking you to swap out something. So in some opinions, peanut butter is less healthy. I think that where you're eating nuts and consuming them, they do have some benefits. But I do try to move people from peanut butter to different types of nut butters, and then I try to switch them from their sandwich to crudité, or to something like sliced cucumbers, or sliced celery, which are crunchy and delicious. They filling, they low to no calorie. So it's sort of moving along a continuum. But I like the example you gave me, because it's exactly that. Can I add in a crudité, or let's just say chopped celery and almond butter as my snack in the afternoon? And can I walk the dog several times a day, or can I go walk to buy the newspaper, walk to get that cup of coffee, walk up and down the stairs at work? What can I add in? And I think when people add it in that way, it feels less overwhelming.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I know there's not a one size fits all for every individual, but as somebody who battles with post-traumatic stress and, all the side effects like anxiety and things, are there any types of foods that folks like me should absolutely stay away from? It's like sugar, bar none, things like that.
Right. So, it's interesting because PTSD has a significant and growing body of evidence around the foods. And one of the things that showed up was natural sources of glutamates. So in my first book called This Is Your Brain and Food, when I discussed the chapter on PTSD, I talk to people about being a little bit careful. So let's start with what you said. Yes, sugar is definitely something we want to include in our lives. Our bodies need sugar, but it's the source of the sugar that's important. A clementine, a quarter cup of blueberries is very different from soda, from just a candy bar or just pure candy and cake. Now, should you eat cake on your birthday? If that's what you'd like to do, by all means, have a slice of cake. But in other words, don't deprive yourself. This message is not about deprivation. But it shouldn't be what you eat 3 times a day, every day of the week. With PTSD, certainly, components of the Western diet, the standard American diet are high up on that list. Sugar, fast foods, junk foods. But MSG and other glutamates and glutamic acid often found in foods that we might eat at a restaurant or be using oyster sauce, fish sauce, even tomato sauce, miso, which I would other recommend as a great fermented food. You have to be a little bit careful of because they do contain natural sources of glutamates, and that has been shown to drive symptoms of PTSD. So in my clinic, I have made a point when I'm dealing with certain conditions to help people maybe find better choices for foods that I wouldn't necessarily ask them to avoid in other situations. So nutritional psychiatry has a lot of nuances, and I think that's definitely one of them.
Thanks.
Just like Stacy, I know a lot of people that, and myself included, not to pull myself out of that list of people, but a lot of people that suffer from things like PTSD, anxiety, and even bouts of temporary or long-term depression. Food makes a big difference. I have a friend of mine who used to wake up every day and would vomit every day. It's just at the start of his day when he had to go into work and things like that. Otherwise, completely normal, healthy guy. Once he got going throughout the day, he was fine.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got him on a meal plan, it was like the weirdest thing. And also, doing on the other side of things, I hyper protein and things like that. I noticed that there were a lot of people, like I myself, do awful in ketosis. I feel awful. I lose muscle.
It's not for everyone.
Hardly, and it's really not. I got a friend of mine who's strong and healthy and has energy. And it's just so interesting because, we've been stuck in this mindset of a calorie calculator where it's like you eat 2,000 calories and you burn 2,100, you'll drop weight. And it's way more complex than that.
That's right.
Food is a process of learning. So what are some other things? How can we use this method of learning to incorporate into mental health? So for instance, when I got better at meal prep and things like meal prep is kind of what I'm talking about here. When I got better at doing meal prep and things like that, it took a lot of stress and preparation because it's like you pick a time and you do it all together and then you don't have to worry about it for 3 days.
Right.
So, I'm not necessarily talking about just the income of meal prep, but I am wondering about the mindset of how do we force ourselves to sit down and learn how to do this, because it is very difficult to learn.
It is not only difficult to learn, it's a challenge to sometimes implement, putting the time aside to do that, to meal prep, to prepare by buying the food to start with, buying the healthy foods, making those choices. I ask people to start, I try to find a hook. And that question usually comes from, what's bothering you the most in your dietary or lifestyle habits? It could be that you've picked up that extra glass of wine during the pandemic. It could be the bowl of ice cream. It could be that you're sleeping really poorly, or that you kind of dropped out of going to the gym regularly, gave up your membership. It could be a lifestyle factor. It could be a nutrition factor. But usually they have something that's bothering them. And once I can tease that out a little bit, I want them to engage around, do you feel ready to make that change and start there? And let me tell you why I do that. Because I have found clinically that when a person writes back to me a few days later, contacts me, calls the clinic and says, I'm sleeping better, a week later, I woke up and I didn't have nausea. Because often when you wake up with that nausea or even vomiting episodes, that can actually signal severe anxiety, and people don't necessarily put that together. People don't necessarily put together the fact that they're sleeping poorly, but when they start to adjust things and they actually feel calm enough to go to sleep, they realize, wow, I was actually anxious and that's why I wasn't going to sleep. So anxiety hides in many different things. So do other symptoms. So I feel as though when a person makes a change and they notice a difference within, say, a week or even sometimes a few days, it may not be improvement of overarching anxiety or mood, but if they're feeling different and they're feeling better, not worse, they want to do more. Then they jump on and then they're ready to go, get that anti-anxiety shopping list, do the shopping and start the meal prep. It gives them that forward momentum that they need. Doesn't work for everyone. Sometimes it's harder for people to get on board and they need a few attempts. But I'm in a fortunate position that the people who come to me are what we consider to be, tertiary care referrals. So it's sort of like they really want to do this work. They're ready. They've waited on, they've waited on a wait list. They're kind of ready to jump in. And that is a significant advantage. I think that I only introduce these types of plans to people who are motivated because it's hard work. It's very powerful work. I want people to do it, but not everyone is ready to do it.
I love that. And I love what you said in that there's clarifying the point that I'm talking about. There's a difference between wanting something and being ready for it. I had, when I first started my journey into trying to take back control over my physical side of things, I think I was like, I'm going to order pizza tonight. Monday, we're doing and I did the whole, I'm going to put this off until Monday. And my wife said, if you can do it Monday, you can do it today. And I hated hearing that. Oh, I hated it. Right. But I do well with a swift kick in the pants. And that's what I needed. I needed for her to, because that was like me. I had to dive in and go, I'm thinking about this all wrong. I'm thinking about it from just a motivation standpoint, not a discipline standpoint. And that's right. And some people can ride the motivation. I'm not it. I need discipline. And so I needed to neglect that side of myself that wanted to reward myself like I was a dog getting a treat by getting pizza because I made a decision to get healthy. Right.
Right. That's right. No, I mean, I think you make an excellent point because I feel that the difference between motivation and discipline is what fulfills the action step, meaning that you can feel motivated to say work out. People with significant mood symptoms or even severe anxiety may find, or actually many conditions, may just find it really hard to get back to the gym, just really hard to get back on whether it's a treadmill or working out. I know that as part of your training, it's so ingrained that it's harder to fall off exercising. But for the rest of us out there, it can be. And I think that when you think about it like brushing your teeth, then it's just part of your daily discipline. It's just part of
what is that again? Brushing teeth? I'm joking. I'm just joking. I'm being ignored. I'm so sorry. I was just. I didn't catch that. I still got them. Don't worry. I'm just joking.
Joe has a third grade sense of humor, so
yeah, he does.
All of us sophisticated people.
Last time she picked on me, she said second grade. So
I have to write it down for him and stick it on the road. So
go ahead,
I think that when they, I think when you make that switch in your head. And it's not that you don't want people to be motivated, but when they understand that it's like meal prepping is like you get up and brush your teeth, maybe Wednesday is your meal prep day, maybe it's Friday, maybe it's Sunday, whatever it is, it's just part of your routine. And I think that the other part is understanding it may not be perfect. You may do it for 3 weeks and then just suddenly have a bad day, or you may, and that you can get back on and you can course correct at the next meal and you can course correct in a couple of days, and then your new Meal prep day is Thursday, because that's the start of your week. I think the more that we can sort of be patient with ourselves, the better we can get into those habits, which are part of how we lead our lives. And that's where it becomes part of lifestyle. Really, that's where it becomes part of lifestyle.
Well, I would interject and say, well, maybe Joe needs a kick in the pants to get going. It sure doesn't seem like you do, Dr. Uma, from your academic background to your clinical practice to the best-selling books that you've written. What is it that drives you personally? What is it about this work that's so meaningful to you?
Thank you. So I want to be the first to admit I'm not a perfect eater or exerciser. I myself, need those reminders and prompts and good people in my life reminding me to stay steady. But thank you. I feel that I remain connected to the mission of the work, which is how can I help people heal using food? How do I help people understand food as medicine, and that adjusting your lifestyle factors and now understanding more about your metabolism can be extremely powerful. Because nutrition is the one factor in all disease models, not just mental well-being, that can improve your overall health. So why is it that only 20% of medical schools teach doctors adequate nutrition? And why is it that our doctors don't talk to us about nutrition? Because they don't study it. And they think they have to refer you, and they should refer you to someone else to at least have that conversation. So I feel that the more I can beat this drum around food is medicine, it can be incredibly powerful alongside any other treatment that you're doing for your mental well-being. Because I still prescribe medications, I still believe they're life-saving for many people, but it's not the only way. I still feel psychotherapy is incredibly important and encourage all of my patients to be engaged in some form of psychotherapy until, when they find the right fit for them. So I think I appreciate the question, and I think that I just have to stay rooted to growing the resources for more individuals, because I can't do it alone, and I know that people are interested and we want to train more clinicians and help more people in mental health.
Well, we sure are grateful for you, Dr. Uma. Thank you for that.
Well,
Thank you.
let's talk about a little bit about where the food and love and emotions meet on the home front. I know that you do a little dabbling in cooking, and not a little, like you're actually a pretty proficient, if not excellent cook. And I want to know a little bit about, people talk about food for the soul. So tell me a little bit about the one spice you can't live without in your kitchen, your favorite recipe, and what's the dish that you think is food for the soul in your house?
So I'll start with the third question first. A food that I cannot live without is something that is either eaten on its own or as an accompaniment with other Indian foods, and that's dal. It's made from lentils. There are multiple different variations and many different things. You can literally add vegetables to it. You can add meat. You can add more than one lentil in a dal. So it's extremely versatile and something I grew up eating, and I watched my grandmother cook. So it has a deep sense of meaning for me. My favorite way to eat it is with the different types of yellow lentils, and then sauteed with spinach and all of the spices, which is delicious. My favorite spice, that's a hard one. It's like I don't even know that I can answer that, but I think it would be very hard for me not to have my turmeric with a pinch of black pepper, which I use in a golden chai. I use it. I will add it anywhere that I can because I know that it's so good for me. And a favorite dish would be something that has rich spices in it. So some of my favorites are taking. I happen to be vegetarian because I was born into a vegetarian family, and I just never changed. But in my relationship, my partner eats anything, so I cook. I'm pretty comfortable cooking anything for the rest of my family. But I love to take the concept of spices and put it in vegetarian food that you wouldn't think about. So, it's sort of a tikka masala cauliflower steak. And you'll see now people are making, I guess, buffalo chicken cauliflower bites. Well, I do that with Indian spices. And then I add those spices to other vegetables to accompany them, or I'll have that alongside the lentils and, a leafy green salad with tons of added vegetables. So those are some of my favorite go-tos that I'm always going to try to incorporate in my day. But I think that the short answer is anything. In my new book, Calm Your Mind with Food, I wrote Mediterranean recipes. So recipes based on those great Mediterranean foods, but with other spices from other countries. So that, there's a Korean spice you can play with, there's a Chinese spice, there's an Indian spice, lots of different things to make it more interesting, because I think the American palate is surprisingly versatile and people do like flavor. So I think the more that you can prove that food can be delicious as well as healthy, you're going to be winning half the battle there, because the whole thing that we're working against, right, is that ultra processed foods and fast food and junk foods are engineered to trick our brain. They're engineered to help us develop cravings to them. And if you've ever upsized French fries, you definitely thinking about it the next day at lunch. It's there's a reason for that. So I think that those are some of my go-tos.
Oh, that's excellent. I personally love curry in my house, but I have to wait for my husband to go on road trips because he's been really, really spoiled that he's been to, Thailand and India and Pakistan and places like that. And so
Right.
he's back and he's like,
So they
nothing we can cook here is ever going to be hold a flame to it. And I'm like, well, thanks, but I'll do my level best. I do my
and you can enjoy some.
American version of whatever I can get my hands on here at the local. There's a local little shops or whatever. So I do my best.
Yeah.
Any tips on, eating healthy can take a hit to the pocketbook. Are there any tips for veterans who are on a limited budget for trying to swing for the
That's
fences?
a great question.
Steal a box of MREs.
I'm sorry?
I said steal a box of MREs. That was another bad joke. Sorry.
So it's interesting that you asked that question, because I specifically have, when I see a dollar store, if I'm driving around and I see a dollar store, I will often go and check out the food, because I want to know if there are any actual canned foods. It wouldn't be fresh food; it might be bread, but that's not usually a go-to best food for mental well-being. So I will check to see if they have canned tuna, canned salmon, because canned seafood is rich in omega-3s. So that I can say to people, if you happen to live in an area where you don't have much access, these are foods you can actually buy and they're not that expensive. So my tips for living, working within a budget are: use the environmental working group list, the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, because those are the ones. The Clean 15, you may be able to save money by not buying those organic. But for example, strawberries are often number one on the list of the Dirty Dozen list. So maybe buy organic frozen, they'll last you longer, but at least they're organic. The other thing is, budget shop using the center aisles, because the center aisles are not just candy and cereals. The center aisles are also canned beans, canned legumes, canned fish, seafood, oysters, things like that. So with the canned seafood, canned tuna, canned salmon, anchovies, sardines, these are still rich sources of omega-3 fatty acids. Dried and canned beans and legumes, great sources of protein that you can add to whatever your diet is. One of my favorites is chickpeas. Another favorite is cannellini beans. Just rinse them out and use them. Or, if you truly know, and if you know how to pressure cook the dried beans, those are even more cost effective, because a large bag of beans is not that expensive and will last a family a long time. I say to people, rather than buying your kids meals at a fast food restaurant, which you think are budget friendly, think about going to the supermarket, and it will save you money. And I've proven this in a food costing experiment. buy rotisserie chicken, because a rotisserie chicken is often just cooked in its own skin if you eat chicken. And if you have little kids, you can parcel out 3 days of meals, of dinners or lunches, by making a soup, making tacos, making something different each day, a large chicken salad, making it interesting for them. But it will save you money versus buying them the special meals with the toy and the milkshake, none of which is going to be great for their brain or their mental well-being or their weight. And that way you're actually saving money, but you're teaching a parent or a caregiver to save a little bit of money there as well. So, a few different tips to save money where you can, but the more times that you can eat a whole food or a frozen vegetables, another cost-saving way to go. You don't have to get the whole head of cauliflower or broccoli, just get the frozen version. And if there's a sauce, omit the sauce and just make sure that the ingredient list says cauliflower, So the less processing, the better, and the healthier we can be.
So
that's some really great tips. Thanks.
I got one thing that I want to, one last question that I wanted to ask. One, I think of the most beautiful things about military service is that you have people from all walks of life who come from different cultures, different backgrounds, different religions, different everything. So for instance, I'd never heard of tapatio sauce until my entire third squad, like 80% of them were Latino. And I love that stuff now. And And then I got another friend of mine that's all about that Kentucky hot chicken spice that you just put on anything. It doesn't have to be on meat or whatever. So I wanted to ask, the shared culture is one of the best things about the military. So what is something that you think, if you were to bring a dish that was vegetarian or vegan to someone's house, that you feel like was something that you could cook a lot of, what is something that you would bring that you think would be, you can go the cultural route and bring something that you grew up with, which would be great, or something that you think would be a good introduction to something that's like filling, that would fit in for like a Thanksgiving meal, or just really a community sort of gathering of people of different cultures.
So it's interesting you say that. So given that we are close to Thanksgiving, a recipe I've been testing and using a lot is one where I lightened up a mac and cheese dish for Thanksgiving.
You've already won me over.
Because I think it's a favorite, so I don't want people to not eat it.
Yeah.
But I lightened it up, and the recipe's in my book. And essentially, the principle was that I halved the amount of pasta used, and I used, believe it or not, cauliflower. But with the sauce, we lightened the cheese by using other ingredients which brought out the flavor. So you couldn't really tell that it wasn't that rich cheese sauce that we all used to. So it had less of certain ingredients, and we filled in more with vegetables and things like that. And so the principle being that, I think, for example, here's one example. I don't think people need to give up their Thanksgiving favorites, but if they can at their table have some healthy choices, and here are a few. Very easy to make a hummus dip and crudité. So as long as you having some other, less on the healthy spectrum appetizers or snacks, because there's such a ton of food, maybe having those healthy vegetables and those dips and those proteins are good, because you also are getting satiated with healthy food, right?
Yeah.
Having a rich, colorful salad, right? Lots of colors and textures for everyone to have a little serving of, along with whatever else they're having at Thanksgiving, I think is hugely important. Making a nourishing soup, because, Thanksgiving can be many hours of a meal. So, having a soup that has people start with that and then maybe have dinner a little bit later keeps them satiated and full, and snacking, but snacking maybe less. Also use of the leftovers, right? Using that turkey to make a broth, to use the leftover turkey itself to make the sandwiches and different things over a couple of days, becomes not only cost effective, it's just a great way to go. Now, if you want to go in a totally cultural direction, if you're Italian, you could make a pot of red sauce and bring it along, and you decide what you want to put into that. If for me and someone wanted to have Indian food, I might take curried chickpeas, or maybe so I do a curried chickpea dip. So I use the spices and make it into a dip so that it can also be an appetizer.
Yeah.
So
I didn't think
it
I
just
liked
depends.
curry for a long time.
Right.
And I think it's
Right.
because I got it out of an MRE.
Oh,
Which is
no.
just-
No, Joe.
I mean, what was I to
That is
know
not
any
the
better?
bar, Joe. That is not
I'm
the bar.
well aware because I did go to an Indian restaurant with my brother-in-law, and they're out in New Mexico, and so anytime they move, they try to move themselves into the culture of the area or whatever. And so out in New Mexico, it's like all about green chili. And let me tell you something, so am
That's
I.
right, a lot of chili. Yeah.
So am I.
Right.
But like you said, I always I didn't realize that I liked curry. I just hadn't had real curry.
You give it a try. The other thing I want to comment on from what you said is the sense of community. Because one of the things I speak about in my new book, because it occurred to me that, the reason I wrote about anxiety is because anxiety has increased by 25% since the pandemic.
Yeah.
It was always the number one mental health condition anyway. And as you know, it exists with other conditions too. So it kind of lurks in a lot of different places. And, one of the things I wanted people to sort of understand was that there are ways that we can quell anxiety, but also through how we eat and having a sense of community. What do I mean by that? Well, I wrote about the Power 9, which actually comes from the work on the Blue Zones. And that's where they talk about different cultures where they'll have dinner together every night, where they will have a sense of community in what they do. It's very much not being on your own and isolated. And that was a huge thing during COVID and what happened. So getting back to that and recreating that sense of community in your hometown, or if your immediate squad or your team members are in other parts of the country, just finding a way to even connect on Zoom is important while you build a community of people around yourself. That just becomes so powerful in terms of how we eat and how we live.
Yeah. Great.
Wonderful, Dr. Uma. Well, we really appreciate the time that you spent with us today. It's been a literal and figurative cornucopia of useful information. All right, Alphas, we'll have all of Dr. Uma's social media handles in our show notes if you want to follow her. Dr. Uma, what's the best place for folks to get a hold of your latest and newest book?
Go to my website, umanaidoomd.com, hit the tab which says books. You can get the links there, and subscribe to my YouTube channel and social media and my ongoing newsletter, because you get free information in my newsletter every week about a new food. And you can find all of those resources at umanaidoomd.com. And my social media is at DRUMANAIDOO. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, Alphas, go get those books. In the meantime, we're going to be right back at you with some scuttlebutt after the break.
As a Legionnaire and Navy veteran, I'm proud the American Legion is an associate sponsor of the Army-Navy game presented by USAA. The American Legion is the first veteran service organization to sponsor America's game in its 125-year history. Through this sponsorship, we are honored to support the student athletes committed to protecting the freedoms we cherish, and we will continue to raise awareness about Be the One, our primary mission to end veteran suicide. Make sure you tune in to watch the greatest rivalry in sports, December 14th at 3 p.m. Eastern on CBS. To learn more, visit legion.org/Army-Navy game. Oh, and not that I'm biased, but go Navy!
Be willing to show up for a veteran. Be willing to stick your nose where it doesn't belong. Hey, be willing to push and prod if things don't add up. Be willing to trust your gut, follow your heart, and take a risk.
Be willing to sit without saying a word, without checking the time, without trying to solve.
Sometimes suicide wants to rip a person from this world. Be willing to grab with both hands and hold on to a friend, a spouse,
a daughter, a son. Be the one who's willing to ask, to guess wrong,
to even offend another, to keep them safe, to remind them that they are valuable. If you know a veteran, be the one to reach out and make them a part of your life.
Okay, Alphas, we hope you had a great break. Now it's time for some scuttlebutt. What do you got for us, Stacy?
Okay, in honor of Thanksgiving, I went down a turkey-inspired Reddit rabbit hole. And took to a thread titled Army Thanksgiving Stories, where veterans shared their stories from past Thanksgivings while in service. I'm going to preface this, guys, by saying a little bit of this is very colorful in language. And so if I share this colorful language, it's because I'm quoting it. So earmuffs to some of you. You've been warned. Okay. At Rozbosch shared, OIF 2004. On a small team north of Mosul, living among Kurds, spending a lot of time in villages tucked away in the mountains leading up to Thursday, it's not likely that we're going to go on a convoy, our Pesh down in Mosul for a turkey meal. So we just figured we're missing out this year. Family had spent packs of stuffing mixed with cans and cranberries, but it would be useless replacing turkey with goat. Then we noticed 2 actual turkeys in one of the villages near the Turkish border. Haha. Kind of funny and ironic in the same way. We remarked to the Terp, oh wow, we didn't realize there were actually turkeys in Iraq. This leads to an explanation about Thanksgiving to our interpreters. Within minutes, one of our Pesh bodyguards walks over, shoots both turkeys, and loads them into the truck. On Thanksgiving Day, we throw a huge feast at our safe house, feed all the Pesh guards, give scraps to the local kids who think cranberries are weird. We taught them how to play American football in the gravel that day. Late that afternoon, while sitting around, I'm in a food coma. The radios come alive with the word that a general is flying into our AO to deliver a turkey meal. We live in a city block and don't have the HLZ for anything bigger than a little bird. So we loaded up and rolled over to meet them at the big Pesh compound across town. We load him, his detail, and a shit ton of mermites into vehicles and take him back to our neighborhood. He's kind of amazed we weren't all jazzed about his visit until he sees the wreckage of our turkey meal, complete with bags full of turkey feathers and innards. Looks like you boys had a real Thanksgiving. That's a pretty great story. Turkeys on the Turkish border. That's a pretty memorable Thanksgiving, if you ask me. What do you think, Adam?
I was hungry once on the Hungarian border.
Oh, no.
I just imagine that general's like, what the heck, man? I was like, coming in here with these turkeys on Thanksgiving.
The question
he's
is,
probably
what
like,
did they shoot the turkeys with? Because you could definitely blow apart a turkey with the wrong size caliber.
Yeah. I don't know.
At Umga had a more relatable experience. We were flying to Iraq on Thanksgiving night. They did a big send-off for the brigade. This was early on, by the way, with lots of brass and celebrities to serve the troops chow. I walked by the DFAC and saw 10 of those turkey deep fryers outside, churning away. Must be the first wave of turkey for the Advan. I thought to myself. Nope, it was all the turkey they were cooking for 5,000 Joes. First 100 people or so went through, smiled for the cameras, and got full plates of Thanksgiving. My company slogged through 6 hours later to be served mashed potatoes and bread. All that was left, by the way. By washed-up drummers from some band that peaked in the 70s. Fuck cooks and fuck PR stunts. Sorry, as I said, very colorful language. Not my own. I will say that a couple of people did weigh in to this particular story. At Account for My Nutsack responded with, sorry, these handles, 10 turkeys for 5,000 men. Someone failed first grade math. This is very true. This is Army math. Right, Adam? Army math. Get it? At Traviplex added thoughtfully, this adds up properly. If average turkey weighs 16 pounds, then the total weights of
This
all the
guy.
turkey meat is 16 times 10 times 16 equals 2,560 ounces. This equals about 0.5 ounces per Joe, or 1 ounce per Battle Buddy team. 1 ounce is roughly what you would get for one sliced turkey for sandwiches. You were supposed to share a slice with your Battle Buddy. Sounds about right.
I bet Traviplex got punched a lot.
It's true. At 11 Pog then shared their Thanksgiving memory. So no shit, there I was in Afghanistan in 2012 with our PLT got put on QRF for Thanksgiving. Very few missions going on since it's a holiday. Alpha Company goes out, hits an IED requiring us to spin up, miss our dinner. Fuck you, Alpha Company. At Dan
I was in Alpha Company.
Were you in it? Yes. Well, there was a few more threads after that responding about Alpha Company, so apparently they weren't very popular. You were not very popular, Adam.
Such as it goes in Alpha Company, but I was also in Charlie Company. It was the Bravo bastards that I was never a part of.
No. Well, at Dan the Wood overshared his experience, and here we go, everybody. Alphas, prepare yourself. Like I said, earmuffs. First Thanksgiving in the Army outside of the one in basic training. A buddy in the battery had some second cousins and whatever in the area, Carson, Colorado Springs, or whatever. He invites me and another buddy to go eat. Turkey Day arrives, and the other buddy is depressed and day drunk at 10 a.m. We go to these fine folks' house, and they serve oyster dressing. Okay, cool, but we're in Colorado. Do they get oysters? These weren't Rocky Mountain oysters. They were regular old live in the ocean kind of oysters. The kind of body water nowhere near the Rockies. By about midnight, me and my buddy are taking turns on the shitter and throwing up so bad we eventually just drove to the emergency room. My other buddy took a taxi to Denny's and was just fine. Lesson learned, should have just got day drunk and gone to Denny's. We've all been there before.
Or Waffle House if you're in a pinch.
Or Waffle House, yeah. At Daddy's House 87 said, middle of Saudi Arabia during Desert Storm, Thanksgiving meal was K-Pax. My very green 01 platoon leader looks at me and says, this applesauce tastes pretty bland. I reply, sir, it's mashed potatoes.
What is a K-Pack?
I think that's the step up from an MRE. I think that's the bigger thing of what they serve like out of a trailer.
Ah.
All right, here's the final story that I pulled down. There are several, but these are just the highlights. At Signals and Switches shared. Okay, here's another colorful one for you guys. Earmuffs. The fucking butter sculptures inside the DFAC at Al Saad. There was Abe Lincoln, a T-Rex, Statue of Liberty, pilgrims, turkey, a boat, another T-Rex. I ate the vegetable lasagna. It had pickles in it. Fucking gross. After the fine dining, I went back to the Chews to relax, only to have our generator take a shit. Froze my ass off all night long, then had to thaw out early to run a fucking PT test. What sadistic bastard schedules a PT test the day after Thanksgiving? Well, everybody out in the fields, for all seriousness, all you active duty military members who are serving there on the front lines around the world, keeping us safe, happy Thanksgiving. We wish you all the safest and warmest Thanksgivings. And don't forget to join me down the Reddit rabbit hole. Visit reddit.com/r/Tango Alpha Lima. Share with me your finest memories of the holiday season, all your bestest, most wonderful memories, Thanksgiving and all. Adam, what do you got?
Well, during World War I centennial, a lot of Americans learned the story of Sergeant Stubby. Not that one. The plucky pooch who befriended a young soldier during basic training and then stowed away, crossed the Atlantic, and served in the trenches in Europe. He even became a Legion member when he came home. But Amy, have you heard about the bear who was a private in the Polish army during World War II? According to an article from the BBC News, Wojciech was a bear cub adopted by the 2nd Polish Corps in 1943 after his mother was shot by hunters. The soldiers became very protective of the Syrian brown bear, who became a morale booster. Captain Andrzej Gasior, who served in the 2nd Polish Corps, recounted tales of Wojciech to his daughter. He was a symbol that united the soldiers. He was much more than a bear. He thought he was one of us. The bear became known for his love of beer, cigarettes, and boxing. Cassier told stories about keeping dates in his pockets as a treat for the bear. Other soldiers who wrestled with the bear and how he begged for cigarettes and ate them, but he disputed claims of beer drinking, noting that although he was sometimes seen drinking bottles of beer, that beer was often hard to come by, and the soldiers usually refilled the bottles with water. That's good. Good that he didn't have a drinking problem. When the soldiers left the Middle East to deploy to Europe, the only way to bring the bear with them was to enlist him. So it was Private Wodick, now with a name, rank, and serial number, who arrived in Italy. Allied troops reported their shock at witnessing a 6-foot-tall bear carrying shells during the Battle of Monte Cassino. The company emblem became a picture of Wodick carrying a shell. When the Polish soldiers were demolished, Wodick lived in Scotland and was eventually installed at the Edinburgh Zoo. Polish soldiers, unable to return home because of Soviet occupation, settled in the UK, and many of them visited Wodick in the zoo. He died there in 1963. This has to be a complete and total fabrication. No way.
I think it might be true.
I know Holly's saying it's true, but I'm just saying it's that outlandish.
I mean, it's so crazy. It has to be true, though.
Look
I think our super producer Holly would not steer us wrong.
No, I know. I'm just saying it's crazy.
I think so. We had one of the units that I served with had a mascot named Crockett. It was a puppy that was pulled out of a garbage pile, and he stuck with them for the longest time. And the team's name was Alamo, and so they called him Crockett after Davy Crockett. He was the cutest little puppy, not unique like a bear, so nothing extraordinary. I will say this: I worked with a special forces unit, and they had a crazy ass horse. And because I had horse experience, they asked me to do some work with it unsuccessfully. Sidebar. And I think that was probably to the extent of crazy mascots, other than official mascots of military units stateside. Did you have any encounters of crazy mascots overseas?
No, but I'm just looking at these pictures. So you definitely have to check out the link in the show notes, because there's a Polish soldier feeding the bear with a neck collar on. Then there's another one of him just seemingly in formation hugging one of the soldiers, as another Polish soldier's just there smoking a cigarette while he's petting him. This is wild. Like I just think about the I don't know, like the sergeants and the officers, and they're like, you know what? We're gonna sign off on this. It's okay. Let's bring the bear around. What could go wrong?
I don't know. Getting your face chewed off. It could go horribly wrong.
I don't know. Those World War II Polish soldiers were a different breed. So check out the link in the show notes and take a look at, I'm probably butchering the name, but Wodick, the Polish private bear that served in World War II.
Hashtag Scottish citizen. All right, Alpha.
Well,
thanks
he
for
had that drinking problem. So
a beer/scotch at the end. All right, Alphas. I hope you have a very happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for listening. You can subscribe to our podcast, our newsletter, or send us mail and guest recommendations at legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. We will see you next week.
We're so grateful for you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.